Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you again for coming through to a second stream, the second in 2 days. I looked at my calendar and I realized that I'm actually going to be out of town. For those that don't know, I actually currently live in Spain, and it is 10:30 p.m. over here. But all of my people are back over across the Atlantic in Toronto. Some of them actually are in London, UK. So if I got any Brixton people in the house, shout outs to you. Shout outs to my Bramptonites. And hey, since we're doing BR, shout outs to everybody in Brooklyn too. But I'm going to be flying out and coming home to Toronto this weekend. So I imagine myself to be like completely swamped and everything. So I was like, damn, we had such a good time yesterday in going over some of the resumes. A lot of the feedback that I've been getting on the stream was really good. And I appreciate everybody that kind of just came through, shared your resume, took up space with me. It was greatly appreciated. And I am super excited to kind of continue that. So, what I'm going to do is we're going to give some more time for some people to pop in. If you are on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, since we are doing a multi stream, you are actually able to comment on the broadcast in itself and feel free to ask questions. It doesn't have to be exclusively towards your resume, but it could be towards, again, anything around your career, anything around, tech, anything in general. And we got, yeah, Wagwan. I'm currently in Malaga, Viva in Malaga, southernmost point in Europe. We can see Morocco if we stand on a high enough building. Um, Lovely weather. They call it Coast del Sol. And my partner and I came out here because we honestly wanted to skip winter. Seasonal depression is a real thing, and if you're from Toronto, you know exactly what I'm talking about because we can get like into the minuses. So thank you all for coming through. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes. But yeah, for those that are already commenting, let me know. Do you have any career questions that you're curious about that you'd like discussed or answered before we jump right into the resumes proper? I think today we're going to try and get through at least 5 or 6 resumes. But I do have a hard stop at 11:30. So depending on how far we get, we might do a part 3. But again, really appreciate everyone that's coming through. Shout out to Santa, shout out to Trivia, shout out to Rosemary, shout out to Steve all the way from the UK. Oh, it's late for you, so I appreciate you coming through, Steve. I really do. And yesterday we went through quite a bit of different resumes. I think on average the resumes were about like the grade was about a 6. We did have one really standout resume. And if you are curious, I would encourage you to go back on the stream. The stream is on my YouTube, it's on my LinkedIn, it's on my Twitter. Hello, well, we got a lot of people from London. Shout out to my Londoners. Love that. Thank you. I think I'm actually stopping over in London for an overnight on my way to Toronto. So I love that. But we did see quite a few resumes yesterday. And one thing I saw that was consistent with the resumes, it just really came down to people not really articulating their worth. And like I know there's a big conversation right now around like formatting and columns and whatnot. I've shared my thoughts on it too. And while formatting does help, it does contribute to how easy it is to read your resume. At the end of the day, content is going to always be king, right? And I think when we were going through those resumes yesterday, the thing that made that other resume really stand out was the fact that it had a mix of great accomplishments. It didn't rely solely on percentages. It had great context around its impact and achievements. So it made it like an easier read. It made me, as the reader, have a better time understanding exactly what this person was trying to go for. And when you are writing a resume, it is very important. And you know what? This even goes for interviews as well. We got people from Zimbabwe. Oh, we global. Um, but when it does come to your resume, it is super important for you to be mindful of who your audience is, right? And not even just the particular person themselves, but the actual position, company, and industry that they're in. And you want to be able to identify achievements and stats that would be relative to that industry or those achievements, like that the industry, the product, or the service, and maybe particularly, maybe even the team, depending on like what team that you're going on. But I think all in all, we did cover some really good ground, and I'm hoping to get through some more. So, all right, we've hit our 150 mark. So we're going to jump into our first resume of the evening. Remember, folks, if you have any questions, doesn't even have to be exclusive to your resume. You can ask them in the chat. I got my eyes on it. So let's get underway. Share. Okay. Share screen. There we go. Wonderful. So, for those who are new here, just a quick crash course. I give resume grades out of 10. I use a 100-point scale. So that means sometimes you might hear like a 9.5, 9.3, a 7, etc. My main tenets or pillars when it comes to reviewing resumes: how easy it is for me to read, how consistent it is for the themes that are being involved, what kind of story you're trying to tell, and your use of keywords, impact, and achievement. And if it blends all together really well. Again, these are just my thoughts and opinions. They may be different for other people, but I'm coming off of the strength of being a recruiter for like the last almost decade plus of my life. And I'm proud to say we've helped 420 Black people get new jobs in tech. A lot of those have been through our resumes. So right off the bat, we have female, 67-year-old, MPH, MBA. Someone did a really good job with scrubbing out the resume. Shout outs to you. So right off the bat, when we look at the resume, this is a 5-page resume, right? So it doesn't use the full 5, but like when someone is going through, they're going to just immediately assume that this is a 5-page resume. And my rule of thumb is your resume shouldn't be more than 3 pages, and the first page of your resume is the most important page, right? So outside of the length, I do like that everything is a bit spaced out. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of professional summaries. What you can do here is you can either write a cover letter that covers what you're trying to explain in this short paragraph, or you can just write out your overall key career highlights and achievements. Just try not to repeat them throughout the resume. Core competencies, this is a lot of space. So remember what I said. First page is the most important page, but the first half of the first page is what I consider to be the most important real estate of your resume. The reason why that, again, for those that are new, the reason why that first page is super important is because that is the foundation that people are going to use to build that first impression of like what they walk away with your resume from. And that first half of that first page is the biggest contributor, right? Right here on the screen right now, we got that first half, right? And it's covered up by the professional summary. And the reason why I said you want key achievements here instead of a professional summary is that the professional summary feels like a waste of space, while key achievements tells me right away if it's overall your career, it tells me the theme of what you're good at, or it tells me just stuff that you've actually achieved in the workplace. So that's a good way to actually use this first half right here. And that's why I'm not a big fan of professional summaries. The core competency is a bit mid, right? So for core competencies, I try to avoid soft skills, just because like they kind of come with the role, or like there are better ways to communicate strong soft skills by relying on technical skills, right? So like business development's all right, collaboration management's all right, community engagement's okay, but cultural competency, man. Focus group facilitation, really good because that's really specific. Health policy, equity programs, love that. Management, very vague. Would X that. Marketing strategy, unless it's specific marketing, which we'll get into, maybe depending on how it's used. Mediation, meh. Strategic planning, okay. Talent management, meh. Training and development, okay. So this person definitely could have used a bit more specifics when it comes to actually like talking about what is that their achievement. When we go down to the actual experience, so another thing, and I think this is something that happens with a lot of senior people, right? Especially if they've been in a position for like a really really long time, is that they don't, in my attention, they don't pay enough attention to it, or they don't give enough detail. And what I mean by that is if we scroll down to the rest of her resume here, a lot of that space mimics what's been going on since 91, right? And as I mentioned in my last stream, one thing that I really like to have is a company overview, which is just like a little two, three set, like one or two sentences, maybe three short sentences max, that kind of explains what it is that the company actually is, right? And because of this, I think we can assume that this is this person's own consultancy, which is fine. And I actually really do like the calling out of the clients here. When we go into the actual experience, though, this this gives us details on in terms of like what kind of groups they were working with, but it doesn't actually list out an achievement here, which I feel like is a big 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 area of opportunity, right? Even this little portion over here, very vague, very general. It's not impacting it the way that I would have liked it to impact. And even here, when we talk about conducted health equity training, right? It would have been great to have an idea of like the size of the classes, or if these are enterprise clients, or if like the classes can be as big as 100 people, 1,000 people, just something to really, give credit here. And I feel like that's what's really missing. Um, there's because of also the way that the resume is structured, it can be a bit confusing, which is why I'm like, if you have, like, again, you've been at a career for a very long time, it's good to like center that as your first page entirely, right? Especially because like the clients over here suggest that they've been consistently doing it since 91. So if you immediately scrap professional summary, you get a lot more space in real estate. If you tighten up this core competency area here, again, more space to emphasize what's been going on in this LLC, right? Even when we continue going on here, so like the reason why I was like it's kind of confusing is that I don't know if we're not repeating clients per se, but they're highlighting a different skill set here. So it looks like at first like a completely different job, but really this is just highlighting different skills, and it makes the resume a lot more dense than it really needs to be. Right? Again, if we move this up, we can have a little bit more space to play with. But even then, again, even like this format here, this has always been a format with the keyword, and then you have like the actual context around the keyword. But as Chat GPT has been a thing, this screams like Chat GPT. And talking to a lot of recruiters, talking to a lot of hiring managers, I think this is dumb. But they get offended when like they feel like AI has been used in any part of their application. Again, I think it's super dumb, but like a lot of them will bring up Chat GPT zero, copy and paste the suspected part. And if it says that this is written by AI, they'll scrap the application or just like take it less seriously. And that's because people have been going to interviews and not being able to speak them like what's actually on the resume. So try to avoid this format here. Again, we're on the second page, and I haven't seen a single quantifier for some of the achievements that this person has done. And I feel like not having that kind of undermines the amount of experience that they have. It doesn't really good to do a good job selling themselves, right? Especially like if we're talking about, healthcare, for example, we kind of want to know the size of the hospitals that you're working at, or your that are your customers, the amount of patients that are affected, right? Even the budgets. Like budgets are a huge thing when it comes to hospitals, because if a budget isn't done properly, or the books aren't balanced, then like people die, people are affected. A lot of times, like the head of medicine sometimes will have to think about either cutting like this. I'm going off of Scrubs now. I'm a huge Scrubs fan, but like Scrubs was hailed for being very like one of the more accurate shows that depicted what it was like to work in a hospital, more so than House, more so than Grey's Anatomy, more so than ER. Scrubs was always a point of reference that people use when they wanted to talk about true representation of what it was like to work in a hospital. And one of the big storylines with Scrubs was the head of medicine having to make financial decisions to either like, again, um, push through someone through an experimental surgery that had a lot of money so they could donate it, so that he was able to like open up different pregnancy programs, but that always meant somebody died, right? And not and balancing budgets entirely can be life or death for hospitals and their patients. So that not being conveyed here whatsoever, to me, takes away from the effectiveness of the resume, especially since it's so geared towards healthcare. And then this format in itself is just really confusing, because I don't have specific dates on like when these clients were clients, right? Again, if it was all just consolidated into like this one thing here, it'd have been easy to read, but there's a bit difficulty here. um, Moving on, we're on the second and third page right now, and now we have the other jobs. And I think cutting this down, your 91 experience, to just fit on that first page would have made it easier for us to understand all the other opportunities that you've also had. Again, not seeing a lot of achievements right now, right? Everything kind of reads like a job description, right? So as we're going forward, this is the first quantifier that we have, right? And it is from the 91 era on the third page. That's too much content for us to just get to our first numerical value. Like that, you use an absolute number, but again, there's a lot more that you could do. And also, if the experience is older than 5 years, we don't need so much detail, right? Like some of this stuff here, I like the FEMA stuff. Again, even mentioning how many people you helped during certain disasters. I'm guessing this is around Hurricane Katrina, right? Detailing the departments, detailing how many rollouts were there, like that goes a big way in terms of defining your experience. And when we go down to education, um, this can all kind of be tightened up. We do not need the professional communities and affiliations. That's stuff that can actually be on your LinkedIn. The publications are good. Again, I would have them on your LinkedIn, and I would even incorporate, honestly, the publication stuff. I'm guessing like because you're the president, this is your LLC. I would incorporate the publication stuff as as an achievement in the work experience, and then hyperlink it to maybe a PDF where you can actually read what the publication was like. But this is a very long resume. Um, I understand that this person has a lot of experience, so sometimes that could be hard to consolidate. But you have to be ruthless with your spacing, right? Oops, I opened up the code window. Because like we can't be getting to like the third, fourth page, and that's when we get in our first achievement. So for this particular resume, I am going to give it a 6 out of 10. Things that I like is that it's spaced out. And I think what this person has done has been really cool. But because I don't have the actual values to quantify that piece of impact, I don't know how cool and how good they really are at their job, which is something you have to be mindful of when you are when you're making your resume. So thank you again. Thank you for sharing that. We will go to the next one. And remember, folks, I always say that I prefer resumes in PDF. It just makes everything flush and consistent. So before I jump to the next one, just want to see, we have a couple of questions here. Are you suggesting to get rid of the professional summary? I am. Get rid of it and start off with your technical skills and jump into your experience, or have an overview of like some of your best professional accomplishments in your career, then go into your technical skills, then go into your experience. Just make sure that's what's at your accomplishments does not repeat in the rest of the experience. But the professional summary is a waste of space and a waste of time. And in my opinion, you are better off having that information on a cover letter because you just have more space to operate and you have more space to give context to what it is you're trying to achieve. Uh, how can I understand? Keen to understand how I can target product manager roles with such a hybrid background. For context, he's been working as a product manager, as a hybrid for a leading product design agency, working for startups, and he got made redundant recently. Sorry to hear that, Steve. In your shoes, I would actually have two different types of resumes. One that highlights more of that product side, with that secondary being the project management, and the other one that's reverse, one that's primary for project management opportunities and uses the product management skill set to supplement that, right? Sometimes when I work with project managers, a lot of them have like they're like half scrum masters, and it's like, you know, you don't want to be like a master, like a jack of all trades, master of none. So in certain scenarios, it's really good to have multiple resumes that have different focuses, and that's how I would target those type of opportunities. Okay, let's go to the next one. Thank you, Tiandra, for sharing. Okay, so I'm not the biggest fan of this resume template. It feels very bare bones, and it's kind of confusing in the sense of where like we have half a professional summary and then we jump right into the technical skills, right? So it's very jarring in terms of that shift. And then when we go into the actual experience, now I do like that you have achievements and quantifiers here. And I like that it's actually like straight to the point. The only thing that I would say is that it feels incomplete and you're not really telling a full blown story. I would even say that because you've been at Cox Automotive for so long, all this can be consolidated into one. And you should have a role overview so we know what you do as an SEO specialist. Don't just always assume that the person reading your resume um, has an idea of like what it is your job title is. Like job titles are very fluid. Like I've recruited people that were software engineers by their skill set, but like their job title was like code Jedi. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, the hell is a code Jedi? But listen, when you're the founder of the company, you can do whatever the hell you want. Apparently, if you pay in the payroll, you call people whatever the hell that you want, right? With respects. So have a role overview. Tell us what your overall responsibilities were, and then that adds a little bit of context to some of the successes that we see here. Now, the other thing that I would have done, like and I think a lot of people like you spend a lot of time at a company and you get promoted multiple times. I always get the question of like, yo, how should I go about listing the promotions on my resume? Do I just make separate experiences for each? And my answer to that is no. My answer is that you consolidate everything. So this would have been what I would have done would have been SEO specialist two, Cox Automotive, and it would have been from April 2014 to present. And then among the actual achievements, I would have put, promoted from from floor plan specialist to funding service advisor in 2020, and then promoted from funding service advisor to SEO specialist in 2022, right? That way that you're able to acknowledge that you've held multiple positions. That way you don't like waste time on the older stuff because I would assume that you would want to be judged or you'd be going for SEO related roles. So that gives you more space to kind of talk about what you were doing, SEO specialist related stuff, and makes it more appealing. The other two stuff here, right? It doesn't really flow with the rest. Like again, I'm going off of the fact that I'm assuming that you want to work in SEO, and what you need to do is you want to focus and emphasize the SEO related stuff, right? And the reason why I'm like, you want to consolidate it is because like I think everyone kind of already understands that we end up doing the job before we get the actual job title in a lot of circumstances. So it's like phrasing or formatting the resume this way allows you to kind of make up for lost time. And you're not misleading anybody because you are outlining when you got promoted to those positions, but it also flows really well. But this resume is super bare bones, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to give it a bit of a lower grade. I'm gonna have to give it a 5 out of 10. Um, I will show everybody um I will show everybody the like a resume template. I'll tag it in like the comments for the LinkedIn, the YouTube, and the Twitter for a resume template that I give away for free. A lot of I think about 160 of the 420 people we've helped have used that resume template to get new jobs. So I will definitely share that and you can download it. There's no sign up required. I know everyone that does SEO is probably cringing at that, but there's no sign up required. You can just straight up download it and share it. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next resume, and before while I load that up, we have a couple of questions in the chat. Rosemary, one of my favorite people, by the way. Should we show the open to work banner publicly? Um, I think it's okay, to be honest. I think any like I think the hesitation is around the fact that you had a couple jackass recruiters that were saying, "Oh, people look desperate. They have the open to work ban. Like they just need to get off their high horse. Like fuck them. Like pardon my language." But like anyone that tries to clown somebody in this market that's trying to like find work to feed their kids, feed their family, feed their cats, like what I'm saying? Like you don't need to be dumping on them because like the like karma is something, right? It will come back and haunt you. So I think you should be totally okay with it. Some people may judge you for it, but I don't think those are people that you would want to work for or work with. Some recruiters are jackasses, but every time they like show their ass, they get handed it to them. So just ignore them. I think it's okay for the open to work banner. Um, I I don't for full context though. I don't put the open to work banner when I'm doing client LinkedIn's, just because I do want to be mindful of like again the way that people are stupid and the way that they move. But again, like everyone knows what the hell's going on with the economy. Like people are going to be open to work, and they shouldn't be like judged for it. And if you do judge them, like big fat fuck you. Can I send you my resume? Yes. I again in the post I will share the email where you can send the resume and you can be added to the queue. We do have quite a few resumes, so it might be a while before your resume is seen. I just ask that you scrub your information because again, I am putting this on platforms. I don't want anyone to have your personal information or harass you. I'm not responsible for any prank calls that you get. Is it okay to use AI to create a good resume? It is, but as I said before, you want it to sound as authentic as possible, because people are like more and more hiring managers, recruiters are sharing that like it's a little taboo for them to like feel like your AI created your resume or your cover letter. I think it's stupid, right? I think AI is a handy tool for creating resumes, and as long as you're able to back up what you have on your resume through your actions and your words, who cares, right? But when making a resume, try to make sure that the AI is not adding any fluff and that everything that's on it is true that you can speak to in detail. Andre, what's up? If that's the Andre I think it is, what's up, man? It's good to see you or have you in the room. But 4 different roles over the last 12 years, what's the record number of bullet points per role? I don't have a preferred method for bullet points. My rule of thumb is that the most recent experience gets the most attention and love, unless it's like you were at a place for a year and then the plate prior to that, you were at a place for 10 years, and that might have a bit more detail. But my general rule of thumb is if experience is older than 5 years it doesn't need that much detail because the world has changed completely in 5 years. And the only thing that you're really telling me is tenure. Because if you haven't used the skill in 5 years, it's outdated, it's rusty. You pretty much have to teach yourself all over again. But if that skill popped up in your most recent job, then it's still a fresh skill. So keep that in mind. The most recent and what's on the first page needs to have the best attention and the best effort and the best number of bullets. Um, any advice for a former educator with 10 years of academia pivoting into HR? How can I emphasize transferable skills to land HR roles? Um, so, to be real with you, as an educator, I wouldn't pivot into HR off rip. I think you would be better off looking at learning and development or training or maybe even Scrum Master related roles. I just feel like the transferable skills are more one to one if you're an educator. Learning and development is kind of like, again, you can see how you're educating people on new things, and Scrum Masters are all about like educating people on new processes. So I would look towards there. And that could be your back way into being in like an HR generalist. But pivoting straight into HR from academia, unless you are working in HR academia, could be a bit tough, and you might be better off doing like a roundabout way. Uh, okay, I'm gonna answer these last two questions, and then I'm gonna move on to the next resume. What do you do when you're not allowed to share quantitative metrics from the previous roles? How to bridge the gap with taboo around creating resumes via AI? Um, Unless you're working straight up for the government, like you are federal agents, it would be really hard for it. To me, it would be hard, like for anyone to stop you from using metrics on your resume, right? Like unless you like even if you signed an NDA, to be real with you, um, unless you're like publicly putting your resume out there, like on the Indeeds and whatnot, you can be very selective about where you're sharing your resume. And any ATS has default privacy settings to protect your privacy. So as long as you're not sharing like very sensitive information, you should be able to share your quantitative metrics. So I would ignore any employer that would tell you otherwise. How to bridge that gap with taboo creating resumes via AI? Just make sure that the resume doesn't sound like very AI-ish or very fake or very like fluffy. That's one of the biggest things with AI is it just sounds like a bunch of bullshit. Uh, could someone please drop the link for resumes? Bria, after the stream is over, check the chat, check the comments. I will be dropping it there. And lastly, any advice about how to address employment gaps on a resume and a cover letter? So when it comes to gaps in your resume, um, when a recruiter asks like, "Yo, what have you been doing since time since you haven't been working?" What they really want to know is how have you ensured that your skills have remained sharp um, despite the gap in your work history. And let me just say, I think any recruiter asking about gaps is a dumbass right now because, again, context. Like, look what the hell's happening to the world. Like, Cisco just laid off bare people. Amazon's trying to lay off people by bringing them back into the office. Like, why are you asking about gaps? Are you dumb? Like, where have you been the last 4 years? We had COVID and everything. Besides that, I'm going to go on a rant right now. But besides that, what they're really asking for is like, how do I know that you can hit the ground running and your skills aren't rusty? And the best way for you to answer this is to either tell them that you were doing education, tell them that you were doing consulting, tell them that you were even doing teaching. Like, that you were mentoring people is a really good way to get around that. I like the consulting aspects, right? I like saying that, I took on some smaller projects. It helped me get into different industries and then having like that work to back up, which is why I'm always telling people like, look for opportunities to share your skills, share your knowledge, because anytime that you did that, whether it's a formal or informal project, it counts. And that's what should be putting on your resume. So like start up your own consultancy and try to find people to help out with your skill set. And it won't even look like a gap on your resume. All right. We're going to do two more resumes and then I'll get back to the rest of the questions that are there. But I appreciate y'all for even spending this time with me. All right, let's go to the next one. Wilfredo, thank you so much for sharing this. Okay, so I'm not the biggest fan of the double column resumes, just off the fact that it can be a bit hard for recruiters to skim, and also when ATSs read them, it can be hard for them to categorize the information. So generally speaking, I kind of like to avoid these, right? But with that said, if you move your expertise or your technical skills to the top, these would all be really effective and really good use of your expertise or your technical skills. Really, really like them. Here, you know what? So as an engineer, I know what I said previously about soft skills, and that still remains. But like when you're in positions where soft skills aren't really emphasized a lot, like engineers, for example, talking about soft skills can go a really far away, and highlighting them can be a really good move. Like homie Wilfredo over here. I actually do think that these are really good soft skills to have and highlight as a software engineer. Languages, I'm not the biggest fan of like grading systems like this because like what does like a plus or like a 1 out of 5 mean in terms of French? You know what I'm saying? Like to me, that could mean that you just only know how to say bonjour. But to you, maybe that means like, you're good at ordering food in a restaurant, but like you can't write an essay, right? So I think you would be better off writing, native, fluent, beginner levels when it comes to your languages. But like, yo, 3 languages is really good. Shout outs to you. I'm low key jealous. I'm trying to learn some Spanish and it's poco. Um, so when it comes to the actual experience itself, I love that you put the company overview. Thank you for giving me context on what Euro Market Designs is. I have never heard of that company, but boom, you putting it there and putting the clients allows me to have an idea of just like, if not how big the company is, how big of the customer base is. So really good. Um, I like that you've kind of used your technical skills that you listed on the side here into the actual bullet point. I do wish that since you're going to talk about smooth operations and user support, it would have been good if you talked about like what year over year, how much like you've improved or maintained some sort of user support or user rating, or like how smooth your operations have been, maybe in terms of like a time-based metric. Because even though you're listing out the skills themselves, these two first bullet points read like job descriptions, right? Um, I like that you have the percentage here, which is a nice change of pace. I would add like a year over year or MTD or YTD. Year over year is YOY. Month to date is MTD. YTD is year to date. And that just adds a little bit more context to allow us to see like where your improvement is. Again, percentages you got to be really, really careful with, because if you don't have the right context, they just read like fluff. Love this point right here about the 6,000 plus devices. This, in my opinion, should be the first bullet, right? And this one's kind of the same as above, just really generic. Doesn't give us enough to kind of go off of. And when we move through here, um, everyone like try to make sure that your per point of view or perspective is very consistent. So if you are going to use first person verbiage like make sure that you're using it throughout the oh, you did, my bad. Make sure that you're using it throughout the entire resume, so you have that there. I personally like a third person because it sounds very neutral, but like I think saying I is fine from a storytelling perspective, and that's cool. But kind of same thing here, right? You need to have quantifiers for us to understand what it is that you're actually doing or how big. And that could be from like talking about either how big the clients are, talking about how big the portfolio is worth, how big the budget is, right? How many users are across your social media accounts, right? Because that's what the assets are going to be exposed to. And that's a really great, easy quantifier to grab. Um, Genius bar, like love kind of love what you have over here. We don't really need a roll overview for what Apple is doing. I would have talked about how many people, even if it's like a guesstimate, I would have talked about how many people you serve per day at a Genius bar. I know it's a lot. I know it's a big number. So that's why I kind of wanted to kind of get more of like an actual numerical value there or a quantifier there, or even talking like you talk about service requests. Something that I would have done is I would have brought up what my average repair time is relative to my peers to kind of show like where I'm at with regards to how fast and how many customers I'm able to serve. uh 30 to 40 people per day. Apple techs do 30 to 40 people a day. That is crazy, but I get it, right? So I like and I think just from a color palette way, it is actually very interesting to look at. So I would give this a 6.5, 6.8. um you just need more of your bullet points need to resemble this one, and it would be a really strong resume. Thank you so much for sharing. We're gonna go to another resume, and after this resume, I'll go back to answering some questions. Okay, let's start out. Oh, this person really scrubbed the resume. No name, no nothing. I love that. Okay. We got the professional summary. I think y'all already know how I feel about professional summaries. Um, I do like that you call out certain tools, but again, I think you'd be good jumping straight into your key competencies. You're an implementation manager, so I think all of these are actually really good key competencies. When we go into the actual experience, so I will say that right off rip, I like that it's one page. I think if this is where your contact information was, I think you might be better off reducing the font size of the name and the contact info, and kind of increasing the font size of the actual like resume proper. Because if we're at 100%, we kind of have to squint and to kind of see it. So making like removing this and making the font overall bigger, I feel like would be a huge plus. Um, this sounds very generic. This does not. This is actually a really good bullet point right here. Manage a diverse portfolio of 10 plus clients. Love it. Achieving a 97 client satisfaction rate. Love it. And a 22 increase in client retention year over. That's what I'm talking about. Year over year through proactive risk management, continuous feedback loops, and alignment with client objectives. My bad. The Jamaican came out at me. Just had to slam the table like a domino table. But that is a excellent bullet point. That is exactly what I'm talking about. This is how bullet points should be used. I love the fact that you don't just rely on one quantifier, but you use three to really drive home how impressive what you were doing is, right? I think having a company overview would have been really good, just to give me a little bit more context as what the Center of Creative Leadership is. Again, generic, and this is another strong bullet point because you have the timestamp there. Going to the rest of the roles, um, really good use for this bullet point here because again, we have absolute number, we have a time metric, and then we have the percentage. Percentage can always be strengthened by just giving us a time frame, year over year, year to date. But overall, really good. Develop training programs. So again, be careful with this format with the colon and the keywords because it does scream chat GPT, right? And if you are going to do chat GPT, just remove this part right here and go straight into the actual experience in itself. And even then, like if you are going to use this format, you're better off bolding this part because everything kind of blends in. Um, and there isn't like a lot of spacing as well. But outside of that, I do like the use of numbers for this one. This one's really vague. This one is also really good, but now you're kind of over relying on percentages. So we already got 4 or 5 percentages here. I'm sure you can find other quantifiers to kind of express what you're doing here. Very generic. Um, and all this is pretty generic as well. Don't put COVID layoffs. Just put the months, right? It happened 4 years ago. No one's going to judge you for it. right? And the fact that you were like you might not even really even need to add this because you have 5 years here and you're 2 years deep here already. So like you don't even really need this. You can get rid of this and have like the actual and like do a better job with your spacing. But overall, I'm gonna give this a 7.5. Um, I think there's a too much over reliance on percentages, but the bullets that are actually really strong here are really strong here. So getting rid of the GTT experience, spacing things out, taking out the chat GPT formatting, and making more of your bullets sound like this one will make this easy like an 8.59. So like really good, really enjoyed it. I'm gonna call you blank face because we ain't got no name for you. All right. Gonna move on to the next one, but before I hop over, I want to check out what's going on in our comments for questions. Um, Alana Ray, thank you. You were in the chat last night too. I appreciate you for coming back for the sequel. I've opened and managed and sustained several small restaurants. What advice do you have for someone looking to tailor those transferable skills toward a career in project management? So, I would first encourage you maybe to instead of project management to look at operations management. Restaurant like the restaurant in itself is what the project would be, and the customer satisfaction would be a big element there. But because of the chaotic nature of restaurants, and because everything is it's like time sensitive, it's balanced, it's in real time like I think you would have an easier time making the connection or distinction as an ops manager before project management. I would also say that you would be really good looking at like a company like Skill Hat, for example, to like get some actual experience in the sense of like an actual project underneath your belt that you can project manage and use that as a reference. But like top of mind, I think you should look into operations management or even Scrum Master uh, instead of project management. Do you have a federal resume template? No, but you know what? I might add that to my list of things to do and create one. Should you give overview of the company's resumes? Some Fed jobs want clean resumes, but many HR departments aren't familiar. So you kind of have to kind of have to cater towards your audience. Federal jobs will specifically outline the format you are supposed to follow for that resume. And I've made resumes for Fed jobs, and they come from a separate source or origin point than like my regular resume. So in your case, you might want to have two resumes, one that follows the Fed format and one just for like regular organizations. Should you give a company overview of the Oh, I think you're the same person. Um, Hey, it's Jolie. What's up, Jolie? Wanted to get your thoughts as a recruiter on the open to work banner. I kind of touched on this earlier. I don't think there's any issue with the open to work banner. I think only assholes have issues with the open to work banner because between COVID and now the economy, like, yeah, people are going to be open to work. Don't be an asshole about it. But like, because a lot of people have judgments towards it, I don't activate them on my clients' LinkedIn's when I do LinkedIn's for them, but I also don't dissuade them from doing it because like there are a lot more better people than assholes out there. But again, you never wanted to. You always want to be careful, and it comes down to like your individual comfort level. How do you feel about using resume templates in Canva? Absolutely hate them. Oh my God, do not use your resume templates in Canva because Canva. So like when you have like a Word doc and you export it as a PDF, the origin point is still a Word doc. So ATS is able to like properly like scan. When I say scan, I'm not talking like make a judgment call on, but it's properly able to like categorize and read it and like displace the information throughout the ATS for people to be able to pick up on it. When you use Canva, it produces basically a JPEG of the resume. And like you can't interact with it, you can't pull any information from it. Like you might not even pop up on like in the ATS in terms of like as a candidate, we're not going to see your name or anything. We might be able to, if we're looking at like the resume preview, we might be able to see the resume, but even then, like to me, those Canva resumes are setting you up for failure. Avoid them. Okay. And last one, should we include the job description details in the cover letter and the resume or just the resume? Um, So I would say that on your cover letter, it's always good to like reference the job. Like I'll have whenever I'm writing a cover letter for somebody, I'll have like their name, the city and the state that they're from, their phone number, their email, and then like the name of the company and like a little dash and then the job. And then I'll be like, dear X team, and include that in the cover letter. And Nick, I'm going to save your question for later, but Andre's asking, is it better to upload in a PDF or Word? My vote's PDF every single time. It protects the integrity of your format. All right, share screen. Okay, so right now we have personal details. I think this is fine. You want to avoid putting your sex, um, or sorry, your gender for the resume. To me, it's just not needed. Um, Key points: experienced project manager, 16 years. That's good. This is also really good. This is good, but it's a bit too dense, so maybe thin it out. And this part wasn't necessarily needed. It could be better incorporated. When it comes to your skills, don't list them all out vertically. You want to spread them out horizontally because that gives you more room to work with. These skills in and themselves are pretty good. I don't like problem solving or leadership skills, or planning and organizing. They're just really generic. Because if you say planning and organizing, project lifecycle management kind of already covers that. Don't include the qualities. Yeah, don't include the qualities. This is more old school. Um, the resume is 8 pages. Your resume should not be 8 pages. Uh, your resume should be a max 3 pages. I'm not gonna go through all the 8 pages, but so again, I think this is a okay format. It's a little bit confusing when you highlight like the main roles here. I think I would have said something like key deliverables, or I would say key achievements, and then like I said, there is no quantifiers here, so I don't actually know specific the details that you're trying to go into or talk about. And the formatting is kind of a bit inconsistent here. I think that may be on purpose because you're kind of using like this as a different title. But again, we don't really get quantifiers until here when you talk about the 22 plus sites across Africa that your project was kind of spread over, and then nothing else. I don't think the behavior skills is good either. I would definitely remove that. Um, and yeah, going through here, there's a lot. It's just really too much. Um, Really too much. There shouldn't be 8 pages, and you don't need the references. So, oh, I didn't grade the last one. The last resume would be a 7. This one would be a 5.5 in my opinion. Too long, not enough detailed. Uh, your achievements your achievements are pretty good, but like they don't start till page 7, and they should be all the way at the top or incorporated throughout the resume. I would say you need a new resume template, because this one isn't doing you justice. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right. Um, okay, let me answer a couple of questions. So Nick asked, which prompts would you recommend when using ChatGPT? How valuable are employee referrals? Employee referrals are extremely valuable in every industry. They kind of take the anonymity, or they kind of take like you just being a huge mystery out of the whole entire excursion. So like it makes people easier to trust you and less skeptical of you because you got somebody vouching for you. Now, make sure the person vouching for you has good standing in their company, because if a bad performer vouches, like prefers somebody or vouches for somebody, unless the company is explicitly said, like the recruitment team has to look at every referral, your referral is not going to get far. Prompts you recommend when using ChatGPT. Too many to count here, but I think I'll make a post tomorrow on LinkedIn about it, and I'll tag you for what it's worth, Nick. Um, Thank you for coming through again. You were here yesterday too. I appreciate you. Let's see. How can I address having two jobs in the same year but with different companies? You would just list them out as regular jobs. There is no problem, and you're not going to get in trouble for that. Do employee referrals work at Fed jobs at Microsoft? Yes, they do. Okay, I know we kind of in the crunch here, so I'm going to go through this next one relatively quickly. Not the biggest fan of this opening here. Just having this blank space just makes it feel incomplete. So just focus on like spreading this out horizontally, get rid of the table. Um, I like oh, okay, ad block. I like I think it's a decent start in terms of the role overview. The role overview is a bit long. And then I do like name dropping the actual product showcase, but everything else, once again, reads like just a job description or a list of responsibilities. So it's not really doing much for me from an impact stand wise. And like that's kind of consistent throughout, right? So like this one, for example, successfully contacted community members. How many community members, right? How big was the contact map that you had to do? Right? Like even just a guesstimate would have been a really good case here, but that's not here either. Um, this one again, we don't really have any achievements, right? Even for here, provided one-on-one support to elderly citizens. How old? How many citizens specifically? What was the average age? Um, when we talk about languages, what were the languages that were spoken? Like, there's a lot of stuff here that isn't really going. Now, the city of Mississauga stuff, this is when we start getting quantifiers. These are the only two quantifiers I've seen all resume, which I think is really good. These are actually strong. I wish most of the quantifiers or most of the experiences that you've had actually had these quantifiers. Um, and the same with like Shopify and the rest. So your resume is just really too long in of itself. I like the 50 plus events here, but I think overall this is another 5.5 resume. Yeah, it's not, it doesn't have the quantifiers. The format is kind of messed up, and it's pretty inconsistent, and it's just way too long. Also, don't put contract. Just put the dates. If they want to know it's a contract, they can ask if it's a contract. But like, yeah, don't put the contract. Don't put the referrals or whatnot. Just sorry, not referrals. The internships. Just put the dates and like give context in the interview in itself. Okay, folks, we are at time, and we still have 37 resumes to go. I think I got some more. I will keep everybody posted on when the next one of these will be. And I appreciate y'all for coming through. There will be a recording that will be updated, and I will be on social media. So feel free to shoot me any questions. But thank you so much for spending the time with me. I appreciate y'all. And until next time, I'll let you know. I'll make sure that the next stream is sooner than later. But have y'all selves a blessed evening and a good night. And we will talk soon. Take care.